Last week, they had the Faith and Freedom Coalition conference. And I was sitting there, and I was actually in Texas, so I didn't have opportunity to attend. But as I was looking at the speakers coming through there, and I was following the tweets, it was very interesting things that I heard and I didn't hear. I heard lots of policy, lots of discussion about debt, virtually nothing about the poor, virtually not much about faith. I heard more politics than faith. But the group is called Faith and Freedom Coalition. What does it say when faith-based organizations, whether they are on the left or the right, put policy before the prophetic or put partisanship before the prophetic?
You know what I think about this. I know Ralph Reed. We talk.
And we try to get him on the show, but they wouldn't return our phone calls.
He's a political operative for the Republican Party. Now, the Republican Party is defending always the upper class. Democrats want to get the middle class votes. Christians, our job before God is to defend the poor and the oppressed, the vulnerable. That's our job. I fight with both parties about that. And you put the poor ahead of policy. You say policy should reflect protection of the poor. So last week during that conference, we had another gathering full of evangelicals like me called the Circle of Protection to surround the poor and the programs that are vital to their survival with the protection of the faith community during a budget process that's all politics, all policy, and nothing about the poor and the vulnerable.
Pete?
Well, I think almost all political decision-making involves elements both of morality, what's right and wrong, of reality, assertions as to what's true and false, and of practicality. How can we achieve the desired goals or ends that we have before us? And I think with the budget and economic issues, they tend to involve more issues of practicality and not so much the issues of morality. That's my opinion. Now, there are, though, issues of morality involved, not only in terms of who benefits from government programs, which is what I think Jim focuses on, but also in terms of taxation, the morality of taking money that people have earned away from them to benefit others, and the morality of financing our government through debt. So I think perhaps conservatives have tended to focus more on those moral issues than the beneficiaries.
I'm sorry. Pete, isn't a budget is a moral document? It reflects priorities and values at your kitchen table, halls of Congress. What's important, what's not, and who's not. A budget is a moral document.
Well, I think I've heard you say that many times, but I think a budget is really a practical document. We cannot possibly spend all the money we would like to help all the people we'd like to help. On the other hand, we can't possibly leave people with all the money that they've earned and not tax them at all. And so the process of making a budget is a process of striking a balance. It's never going to be absolute.
Let me give an example that I think also speaks to this. A few years ago, Governor Bob Riley in Alabama wanted to change the tax situation because I believe in Alabama at the time that once you begin to make at least $4,600, they begin to tax you. He said, guys, look, I'm sorry, this is nuts. This is not fair. And it was very interesting. The business community, they were supportive of him changing the tax code. Yet the effort lost 65 to 35. He used Jesus as the model, in essence, for the campaign. And he often will go around, this is somebody who's a social conservative, evangelical,
Republican,
touting what would Jesus do in this particular case here. Yet it was the faith community, the folks who often say, I see the world, I make my decisions through a faith prism as opposed to a political view. It was voted down 65-35. So the very people who are saying it's about God when it comes to homosexuality, it's about God when it comes to abortion, it's about God when it comes to divorce, said in this case, hey, that's my pocketbook. Hey, Jesus, take a seat. Don't get your hand off my wallet. I found that to be interesting.
Well, I think that when it comes to these economic issues, as I said, there is the pragmatic concerns. Now, certainly you are right in the theological point for us as Christians. The point that I think where the common ground between us is that we as Christians agree that we have an obligation as Christians to help the poor. But I don't see where the Bible tells us that we act on that obligation by using the government, by confiscating other people's money in order to help the poor. We're supposed to do it ourselves.
A budget is about choices. So we have bracelets called "What Would Jesus Cut?" I wish I brought one today. I passed one out to you. What would Jesus cut? So it's about choices, okay? I want someone to stand up and tell me that every line item of military spending is worth more than 10.4 million malaria bed nets that keep kids alive in Africa. I want someone, because they're about to vote that, someone to say it out loud before they make that choice. Or $9.5 billion of money for low-income people's housing is being cut. What they're keeping is $9.4 billion of tax deductions on second vacation homes for the rich. Those are choices. So there's money being spent on somebody. Half the deficit, half of it, was 2 wars funded off the books and Bush tax cuts for the wealthy. And they're going to target now 2/3 of the cuts on low-income people.
So with that, if you're talking about individuals who appeal to Christians, especially individuals who are targeting social conservatives, Christians in that sector, how do you answer the charge, or how will they answer the charge? I will cut money for low-income funding, but I will say it's okay for subsidies for a second home for someone else. How do they balance that when people are saying, I am making decisions based upon how God wants me to do so? Are they really being truthful?
Well, I think they're certainly being truthful. You have to look at the appropriate function of government versus the function of the church. And the function of the church is to care for people. That obligation we have to care for the least of us is a challenge that was given to the church, not to the government. Whereas there are some things that only the government can do. Defending our nation against our foreign enemies is something only the government can do. Churches can't do that. Individuals can't do that. The government has to do it. And so that's why, in some ways, that gets a priority, especially over things that normally involve personal responsibility on the part of an individual for themselves.